Just a reminder before today's programme that if you haven't checked out the first episode of our new podcast, you can still check it out here at AMTV with our first special guest, Philip Hawkins. Please consider supporting us on Patreon. Your support helps keep AMTV running and the programmes you enjoy coming to your screens. For more information, visit patreon.com/Adam Martyn AMTV. And now, here on AMTV, time for the latest instalment of AMTV Radio, and this time, we're going back to the Whoniverse to have a chat with Who Chaser. The following programme is rated U. It is suitable for all audiences. Hello everybody and welcome back to AMTV Radio. This is the show where I am joined by a very special guest each time and we just talk about, well, all sorts of things, whether that's pop culture, nostalgia, a bit about them and their work, just all sorts of things really. And this time I'm joined by a very talented guest indeed. I am joined by the YouTuber known as Who Chaser, or as I know him, as Dom. Dom, how are you? Welcome to the show.
Hello, thank you for having me. I'm not doing too bad. How about yourself?
Yeah, man, not bad. Just trying to keep busy. I mean, I guess the obvious thing to ask, as I might do with any person I join on the show, is how has the pandemic been treating you? Have you managed to been keeping all right throughout all this?
Well, about as all right as one can, really. Been just trying to keep busy most of it. So it's really the only thing you can do in these sorts of circumstances.
I feel that's the best thing, especially for people like yourself and me who are in the more like creative space where like without keeping busy, I think we just sort of fall apart. I think it's fair to say. So
yeah,
no, definitely. And do you just want to explain for those who might not know you? I'm sure some viewers on my channel will be aware of you and vice versa, but do you just want to explain to the audience a bit about yourself and your channel and what it is you do?
Of course. So I started doing YouTube in about 2014 or 15. I can't remember. It's been a while. And I started doing cosplay tutorials. So most people will know me for my How to Cosplay series on cosplaying the Doctors of Doctor Who, which I like to think is kind of my forte because I'm a cosplayer and I just love to dress up as them because it's just a lot of fun, really. And aside from that, I also do a bit of acting in the DW 2012 Doctor Who fan series, Doctor Who fan film. So that is also something that is upcoming, and I guess I'm kind of known for that as well in certain circles of the Doctor Who community. So I get about.
No, sure. I was going to say, I suppose you are the Doctor. It's fair to say you are the Purple Doctor.
In a sense, yes, that is me.
That must be really cool, being able, even in a fan film sense, that must be really cool just to say to people, I am the Doctor, or I'm playing the Doctor.
It really is, in all honesty. I mean, it's not official, but it is the next best thing that I can have a claim to fame to say, I am the Doctor. And you know what? In recent circumstances, you never know. It could well be.
No, absolutely, man. I mean, I'm an actor myself by trade, and I've often thought if I ever was to do like yourself, you know, like a fan film project or a self-produced thing, it's like it may not be official with the BBC stamp, but at least I can say to people in some way, like, you know, I've done it. I've played the Doctor, so I feel like more power to you for just going for it and achieving that. I think it's brilliant. Just as a bit of context, what made you want to get into the whole cosplaying scene of Doctor Who? Was it a particular like Doctor's costume that got you inspired, or did you just like found you started it and then it sort of snowballed into what it is now?
Yeah, I was really inspired by Tom Baker's outfit. That was the outfit that really just captured my heart, so to speak. I had gone to conventions before in Milton Keynes, my hometown, called Collectomania. It was a free convention that used to be at the stadium and at the shopping centre, and I've been going there for several years. And I saw a few cosplayers about, as you do, and one was dressed as the Fourth Doctor, and I was like, I really want to do that. And fortunately, my mother had knitted for me a Tom Baker scarf, and I was like, okay, if I put two and two together here, I could actually make something decent. And I was only like 16, 17 at the time, and so it was very. I had virtually no budget at all, so I just grabbed a red jacket from my parents' wardrobe and just like stuck the scarf on. I was like, ta-da!
Yeah.
And that was my first outfit. So I went to conventions and just kind of carried on from there. I ended up dressing up as Matt Smith's Doctor from then, and then going into Peter Capaldi's Doctor. Yeah, it was all generally going into it's all roads basically lead to Doctor Who for me. So
Yeah. No, I like it. I mean, I love how, as you just said there, with your first ever costume, you just sort of, as a young Whovian with no budget, you just sort of grabbed whatever you could. I mean, I think it's fair to say for a lot of Whovians, who, especially those who like to cosplay or go to conventions whilst cosplaying and stuff, I think that's how a lot of us start, isn't it? Because I mean, when you're a kid, money to buy, replica outfits that are 200 or more pounds, it's just not an option, really, is it?
no, not an option at all. So you really got to just budget save, and you got to really just pinpoint the best things you can on like a zero budget, whether you just make use of your resources basically. So if you just raid your parents' wardrobe with or without their consent, it doesn't matter. Um, so and just make sure that you can just put together something that vaguely resembles the outfit. Like most people will have like a dark like a tweed jacket or something, or just a dark jacket that you can use for Matt Smith,
Yes.
or like you can just grab a, so to speak, a leather jacket you can use for Eccleston's Doctor. Like these things just crop up.
No, that's it. I mean, you're exactly right. I mean, my first cosplay, I went as Matt Smith's Doctor, like the tweed era, if you like, the tweed jacket and the braces and the one colour shirt. And like you say, that was literally, I was about 16, 17, and it was because of budget and ease. I mean, my mate owned a tweed jacket for the sixth form we went to, so I just pinched that, wore a plain shirt, found some braces, some smart trousers, and hey presto, you've got a Matt Smith vague lookalike. But I think what I find a bit personally, I don't know if you've ever encountered this yourself, but what I found disheartening, I went to a London convention, at the I think it was London Comic Con at the XL Centre.
Oh, MCM, yeah.
Yes, yeah. And I went there as the Matt Smith Doctor. Now, my hair is, it's blonde. Basically, my hair doesn't look like Matt Smith, basically. It's blonde. I usually wear it all stuck up like I've electrocuted myself because, I probably have electrocuted myself a number of times. But,
It's cool. It's very David Lynch.
Do you know what? You're not the first person to say that. For those watching on YouTube, I'm going to have to throw a picture of David Lynch on screen now so they can go, right, or like the whole Eraserhead style thing. But no, I remember going, and obviously my head looked nothing like Matt Smith. And, as you do at conventions, like you just get chatting with fellow people who are dressed up, and especially those, I guess, in the same fandom as you. And someone said to me, he was a great deal older. I think he was about early 30s at a guess. And he sort of, like, looked my costume. He was in like I'd say a full replica Peter Davison, like full, as if it had been made by the props team itself, I suppose. And he sort of looked up and down. He was like, yeah, he's like, the tweed jacket's good. It's all good. It's like, yeah, but your hair doesn't match though, does it? And I was a bit like, come on, dude. Like, I'm 16. I'm earning like a few pounds of pocket money on a weekend. I'm still in school. I just think, like, yes, it's nice to have costumes that are as accurate to the screen as possible. But have you ever found in your cosplaying career, if you like, where people have said, oh yeah, like the costume's really good, but like even if it's like a hairstyling or like do you know what I mean? Like minor details. Have you ever found that? Or
I was going to say, yeah, the person who did that to you was obviously a clown.
Quite, yeah.
But yeah, I have had bits and pieces, the odd comment and everything, because I look virtually, my hair only really matches one Doctor, and that's Tom Baker. But I don't limit myself to cosplaying Tom Baker because of like I want to do as many as I can because I just like the characters. But yeah, when people are just nitpicky like that, it can just really annoy you. But I find it's more of a reflection on them that they must live some sort of sad life that or what they want to do instead of like engaging with fans on a constructive basis and deciding, you know what, Doctor Who fan, let's be friends. They're like, Doctor Who fan, you're not as good as me. So, and that's the attitude that has really just caused a fair bit of toxicity in the community, and I don't like that. What we do, this hobby, the why we do it is for fun generally, and sometimes just going as accurate as you can, it is a choice at the end of the day, and it is just sometimes it's nice to have a full outfit and be like, yeah, I did that, that's cool, but under no circumstances is it appropriate to just put someone down for their own outfit.
No, I completely agree, especially when not trying to like make like myself sound like a sympathy story because I was young, but I think especially like, you know, the younger the person is, where it's obvious they might not have the same budget as older fans, I think it's especially inappropriate to try and call them out for that because, you know, they're just trying, they just want to be a part of what for the most part is a really positive community. And I think in a way, in my opinion, the whole, you know, aspect of social media where every debate, whether it's cosplay or on the stories themselves, is, you know, primarily text based instead of like what we're doing now via voice or video. And I think a lot of opinions can either get skewed or, you know, misconstrued, misinterpreted. And I think we've all been there where we I guess we say, oh, if we'd have just been there, you know, face to face with them, this could have all been easier. And I wanted to ask, and this is a topic that is not a bit darker, I guess a bit more serious, if you like. And if you don't want to answer, like, please feel free. But have you ever found in the Doctor Who community you've been the subject of any kind of racism within the fandom?
Yes, I will say. Don't worry, I'll answer this, of course. I mean, even recently, you get people calling you the N word, and it's very rarely, very, very, very rarely, but it still happens. And some people do it just to like get a rise out of you or whatever. But some are just frankly degenerates. But the thing is, like, it's all about knowing that you are better and stronger than those people that try to attack you or put you down in ways like that, because uh, at the end of it all, you are going to be standing there and you are going to be the one who's putting yourself out there properly, and usually the other person is hiding behind a not their face profile picture, grey face or whatever. They'll be just it's just kind of pathetic what they do, really. And when it comes to racial insults as well, especially, that just proves that they're really just trying to get a reaction out of you, because why else would you do it?
Well, no, this is it, isn't it? It's just to get clicks or get attention. And I mean, I am sorry to hear that it still happens. It shouldn't happen really in any fandom, in any context. It's sad that it still goes on like that. But I think the way how you've just described it, the way how you approach it and you handle it, I think is the most like the best way to deal with it. And also, man, you can just say like, hey, I'm the Doctor, I've been the Doctor, like they haven't been the Doctor. Like, do you know what I mean? It's like you're achieving all this stuff like with your YouTube and with DW 2012, and like, you know, you can just be like, well, this is what I'm doing, what are you doing? You sat, you know, faceless behind a keyboard trying to get a rise out of me, like, you know, have a nice day sort of thing. But no, like I am happy to hear like that you say you like, you know, you're able to deal with it in a not necessarily a positive way, but do you know what I mean? You're able to process it in a way where you can be like, yeah, that's happened, but I'm like moving past it. I'm stronger than it, etc. So that makes me reassured to hear, which is good. One thing I do want to ask you, back to a bit more casual stuff, is obviously the most recent series of Doctor Who was Series 12 this year. And obviously, for a lot of people, it was quite a divisive season, shall we say? If that's the simpler word, yeah.
That is the very simplest way you can put it, yeah.
Yeah, the most like easy way to put it. But I'm just curious, just you know, from fan to fan, what was your opinion on Series 12 as a whole?
I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of Chibnall's run on it all. But I do see that it has certainly got some merit, especially Series 12. Series 12 brought forth a very good new master in
Yes.
Sacha Dhawan. I really enjoyed his performance, and the story Skyfall was very good. The whole, obviously, the elephant in the room is the whole timeless children twist.
Oh yes.
I'll get onto that in a mo.
Yes.
But I thought that the more casual episodes of the series, like Nikola Tesla's Night of Terror or the Haunting of Villa Diodati, they were quite excellent in my opinion. So I would definitely say that the Series 12 was a stronger series for me than Series 11, and yeah, I would say it's quite okay.
Yeah, no, sure. I agree with you on the whole. Like, I think there was a lot more fun in general in this series. Like, I mean, I really like, we all have our favorite eras and stuff. But for me, like when I watch, I'm like, if this, is this fun? Is this entertaining? Am I enjoying myself whilst watching it? And on the whole, for me at least, in season or series 12, yes, I was. I mean, yes, as you say, the main thing is the timeless children. We'll get onto that in a minute. But the other like main gripes or criticisms, if you like, was in stuff like Orphan 55 and Praxeus, where there was clear messages. So whether that was climate change or plastic pollution, etc. I appreciate the message. I'm not saying TV dramas like Doctor Who shouldn't tackle that. I just thought, in particular, in my opinion, in case of Praxeus, that whole message was just bashed round the audience's head so much and so blatantly as well, like not even in a more subtle manner, literally to the point where you're like, plastic is bad, isn't it? It's like we're just sat there like, yes, we're very aware. I don't know, like, what do you think? Do you think the messages were a bit too hammered in this year, or?
I must say, Orphan 55 did annoy me a bit. Mainly because they had done this big old publicity run beforehand with BBC America, being like, "You won't believe the ending. It's got to be seen to be believed." And the ending was essentially the the Doctor leaving a couple of people to die and then going on a speech about climate change.
Yeah, yeah, it was like, wow, we wouldn't believe that was ever coming, would we? But yeah, no, it's just, I think it's a fine line in any TV drama, in my opinion, in terms of getting a message across. I think, well, to go with classic Who, the Green Death, for example, like, yes, there were moments where, it's on the nose about how, chemicals and all that sort of stuff can ruin the planet. I mean, there's a bunch of hippies, for goodness sake. But I would argue, even across 6 episodes, the message feels way less, hammered in than it did in one 50-minute episode of Modern Who. I just think there's more subtle ways you can disguise it and get it across to an audience without literally having, as you say in Orphan 55's case, to stand in front of a camera and say, climate change is happening. If you don't do something, we will all die. Do you know what I mean? I think it's a bit too like 80s PSA, I think. But
Yeah, it's a good way to put it. It's very PSA, and I think there are just more subtle ways to go about it. You could just work it in naturally into the script, like political issues were handled in classic Who, more filtered into the story.
No, definitely. I think the modern series can take a lot of cues from classic Who, really, and it has done on occasion. But I think there are still really strong merits of the classic show where they could probably pinch a bit more. I'll probably ask you a bit more about your views on the classic series in a bit, but we have avoided the element of this series. It's the timeless children. It's everyone's favourite.
Ooh.
Yeah, so I'll let you kick things off. What were your thoughts on this?
Well, I just thought it was a bit pointless, really. It's just like, this has... The way it was kind of portrayed is that it was a massive change, but at the same time, no change at all.
Yes.
And it's like, okay, so if it's no change for the Doctor at all, then what's the point? If you're going to go in one direction, commit.
Definitely.
So it was just really easily hand-waved, and it was the same with Fugitive of Jadoon. You had the introduction of a whole new Doctor. By the next episode, the Doctor's just, oh, okay, move on to something else.
We forgot about that. Plastic's bad. Did you know? Plastic's really bad. Yeah.
Yeah, and it just moved on to, and it's just like, okay, we could have really just formed a really cohesive arc if you got rid of about 4 episodes from the series, but okay.
No, for sure. I mean, the whole... Would you argue... Because I thought this at the time, like, I agree with you in the sense, like, I thought, oh, it changes everything, but then it kind of doesn't change anything, as you say. What do you think about the theory some people bound about? Would it be more interesting if the Master was the timeless child instead?
Yes, absolutely, because it would give a real firm motivation for the Master to just completely, A, go back to evil after being Missy, and B, completely obliterate Gallifrey out of sheer spite and revenge. I feel like that one would have a bit more weight to it, having the Doctor's greatest rival, enemy, friend be basically something that was used to create Gallifreyan culture, and they'd be distraught by it. But having it be the Doctor, it just creates that sort of like, oh, protagonist again. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, it's the main character. We've got to give the main character a big backstory. I mean, the whole thing with the whole Tech Tayun and that. I didn't mind that as much. I was like, okay, I can buy this, but yeah, I don't know what it was. Just the fact it was the Doctor, like that fact for me at least, that was a bit like, oh, that's a bit. That whole backstory, if that was the Master, I would have been all for it. All for it. Like as you say, gives a really strong motive for, why the Sacha Dhawan incarnation is the way he is, and we would have been rolling. But alas, it was not to be. But I guess the other main talking point that a lot of people had from that reveal was obviously the whole pre-Hartnell incarnations. In my view, the whole Joe Martyn situation is the only thing that was a bit unsolved for me, and they might tackle it in the next series. But obviously, like, I can grasp that there were incarnations before Hartnell, incarnations that aren't referred to as the Doctor. Like, I would still refer that Hartnell is the first Doctor, as in the first incarnation, to go by that title. But the Joe Martyn Doctor, of course, has an oldish-looking TARDIS interior, but it's a police box, but Jodie's... So I think that's the only block in the way for me, if that makes sense. I don't know what your thoughts on all that are.
Yeah, I find it's a bit confusing as well, because as you said, she's got a police box TARDIS, and that bugs me a little bit, because it didn't become a police box until Totter's Lane. And if we're implying that the TARDIS being a police box is nothing new, even though by rights this is probably a different TARDIS to the one the Doctor's currently using, because the Doctor stole a TARDIS from Gallifrey, so it's just like, how many layers do you want to... is she in between Troughton and Pertwee or something? But then that throws the entire regeneration cycle order off, and it's just like, okay, we're gonna need a good explanation next series, please. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love Joe Martin's portrayal, even in that 10 minutes that she had. She was
me
fantastic.
Too. She's brilliant. Yeah, really fantastic. Just a really strong presence in that 10 minutes as well. Like, that could have flopped so easily, but she literally just came in, did what she needed to do, was really assertive about it. And I was like, yeah, she's the Doctor, I guess, So, no, I mean, it begs the question, of course, like when Jodie eventually decides to step down. I mean, I'm sure you've heard there's these new rumors at the minute. Supposedly, her and Chibnall have signed like a, what was it, like 2-3 more series deal. Had you heard about that rumor?
Yeah, I heard about the rumour. I mean, there was no official verification for it, much like there's barely any official verification for anything these days. I'd say that I know that Chibnall had a 5-year plan, but I don't know if... I feel like Jodie will probably either leave in the next series or the series after that, because a 3 series seems to be the maximum cutoff for New Who Doctors. But she could surprise us and stay for a 4th series, which I guess would balance out the episode count.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't even think about the episode count side of things, but yeah, no, that would balance it out if she did a 4th series. But I recently saw as well. I was tuning into your latest video, which at the time of this recording is the things you want from the upcoming festive special, Revolution of the Daleks. And out of the things you discuss, also anyone who hasn't seen it, highly recommended. Out of those things you mentioned, in your opinion, do you think any of those are realistically likely, or were you making it more from a sense of like the fan optimism side of things?
It's both fan optimism and what we know. I would say the only likely thing really is probably Captain Jack, but even that has got very questionable weight to it. So I take nothing for granted when it comes to the current era at the minute, because it could literally go over way and your expectations could be completely destroyed. But I really just want to see Captain Jack again, because otherwise his appearance in Fugitive for the Jadoon was completely and utterly worthless.
Oh, completely. I think that was the biggest tease. And I mean, we all thought it, didn't we, when it aired, and we were like, well, he's definitely appearing in the finale then. And then the finale ended and we were like, right, okay, no Captain Jack, okay, never mind. But yeah, no, you're right. I hope it doesn't just become he cameoed for 2 minutes in halfway through a season and we're never going to see him again, because that would be really disappointing. Yeah, absolutely horrible. Just while it popped into my head as well, going back to the Timeless Children a minute, the whole thing, with the lone Cyberman wanting to, I just thought, with all that build up you had, with Jack's warning, and I thought the lone Cyberman's use in The Haunting of Villa Diodati was brilliant, personally, like the way it was incorporated, that whole story, and then Jodie's speech afterwards. But I just thought, come the Timeless Children, when the Master sort of took charge, the lone Cyberman was just brushed aside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd have to say that I agree with you there. I mean, he was dispatched fairly easily. He could have easily have been ascended into a big boss villain for the remainder of Jodie's era, because the concept of a Cyberman choosing to have emotions is really quite chilling.
No, certainly. I mean, that scene in particular in Villa Diodati, when it's confronting Mary Shelley, and when you think she's got it on side, asking about like his family or children and stuff, and then he just suddenly comes out. I can't remember the exact line, but something like, "Oh, I had children. I slit their throats," sort of thing. That's like, whoa, okay, that's terrifying. Like a Cyberman who knows that and feels that, but. Yeah, like literally when the Master turned him into a little figure, I think at the time I literally like exclaimed "oh" like out loud, because I was like, "Oh, well, that's that then. Like that's done." So
well, that happened.
Yeah, pretty much. It was like, "Oh, well, that's not a thing anymore." And also the bit where sorry, I know I'm going off on random tangents, but I'm just getting things popping into my head. I think it was in Ascension of the Cybermen near the end. When they've just unveiled like the new look Cybermen, the new cyber soldiers on the ship, and then the lone Cyberman starts like drilling into one, and they never really quite explained what the purpose of that was, unless I missed it, but it just sort of happened.
I can't remember either. I feel like it was something to power them up or something like that, maybe. I'd have to rewatch the episode again, but
yeah, no, I just remember that specifically because you could be right. It could have been like a powered up thing, but it just with like the look on the lone Cyberman's face, it looked as if he was like attacking it, like plunging his weapon into it or whatever. And I just remember thinking that's a really odd looking sequence. Either they should explain that, or if it is a powering up thing, make it more obvious. Because it looked like this poor, like, newly born Cyberman was just being attacked. So, but, yeah, little inconsistencies like that, I suppose. And I've got to ask as well, your YouTube name, Who Chaser. So where did that come from? Obviously, I know you use the theme of the chase in your intros. Nice touch, by the way. Big fan of game shows. Nice touch. But where did that come from?
Well, I was really... One of the first things I did, I had planned for my channel was really a sort of a... Because I'm a massive fan of the chase. I had a little game show of sorts where I would be playing a chaser against other people trying to take me on in Doctor Who knowledge. And so that's how that name sort of came about. I did cosplay as well on the side, but then eventually I just focused more on the cosplay side of things and doing other bits and pieces, and eventually just didn't get round to doing any more of the challenges anymore. So I guess it just sort of stuck. The name just sort of stuck, because once you've got a name and people already know to use that name, there's no real point to changing it too much.
That's really cool, though. That idea of being like a Who chaser, so to speak. I think that's really cool. But yeah, just to test your Doctor Who knowledge, then don't worry, you'll probably find this dead easy, because this was always like my question when I was feeling like, yeah, I can show off like how much Doctor Who I know. So what are the two classic stories where the Doctor refers to his nickname of Theta Sigma?
Theta Sigma. The Invasion of Time?
Close, but not that specific one.
Ah, damn.
Think, wait, it's somewhere in Invasion of Time. It's in the next season.
Oh, the story next from season. Okay, so we're in the Key to Time era. It's been a while since I've watched the Key to Time era.
Oh, me too. It's a bit of a slog, in my opinion. But
yeah, it's not my favourite. To hazard a guess, because I know of the term, obviously, but what's it called again? The Ribos operation.
Good guess, but it was actually the finale, the Armageddon Factor.
Oh, the Armageddon Factor.
So I think that was the one where there's that character Drax, which is a Time Lord from well, claiming to be from the Doctor's year, and I think that's what he refers to him as throughout most of the story. That's one, and can you pinpoint the other one?
Oh, that is... Is the next one a Davison one?
No, it's McCoy.
McCoy. Oh, it's McCoy. Then Curse of Fenric?
Oh, I love that story. I was about to just wax lyrical about that. It's the Happiness Patrol.
Oh, Happiness Patrol.
Because I think they're all like, Susie Q and all that, and then Ace, I think, gets referred to as Ace Sigma, and then I think the Doctor sees a poster and goes, "Oh yes, I was known as Theta Sigma in my university days." But sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot or anything. And if
that's okay, it's only there's questions that are like that are just of the seasons that I watched the least, in all honesty, because I'm not a fan of
that's fair. That's fair. Oh, see, are you not a fan of the McCoy era on the whole?
Or? Oh no! I love the McCoy era, but I'm just I'm more of a season 26 and parts of 25 person, not a season 24 person. So
I don't think many people are season 24 people, don't worry.
Yeah. And I'm not a fan of the Key to Time. It's my least favourite Baker arc, so I'm like...
Oh, do you know what? Thank you. Like, the amount of times I've gotten in conversations with people about Tom Baker's era, and they're like, what's your least favourite? I'm like, oh, the Key to Time. And they're like, what? You don't like the Key to Time? But that's the best. I'm like, okay, leave me alone. But, yeah, no, I just think there's some good parts. Like, I like the opener, like the Rebos operation, and I like the Androids of Tara. I think that's a really good part. But, yeah, just, like, watching all of it, well, not all of it in one go, but, like, story by story, I got to the end of the Armageddon Factor, which, again, is, like, 6 parts, and I'm just like, my God, like, do you know what I mean? I'm just a bit, like, drained. I'm like, this went on for way too long. Because,
I remember a couple of years ago when they did the whole Doctor Who on Twitch marathon, and I tried to watch it from there, and I was just like, oh, I can't do this. And
yeah, especially if you were doing it on Twitch where there's no breaks, I suppose. It just goes on and on and on and on.
It just carried on over the course of a few days, and it's just like, oh, this is too much, man. I can't deal with this. And eventually I just had to tune out until they reached Destiny of the Daleks, and I was like, oh, okay, cool.
Oh, finally, some lightness again. But the main thing I remember from Destiny of the Daleks is the line where Tom Baker's got Davros hostage, and for some reason he says, well, it sounds like he says spack off instead of back off. I don't know why that just always sticks out, because I'm like, I'm hoping he's saying back off, but it definitely sounds like spack off, and I'm like, what a strange insult. Like,
I mean, Tom Baker was basically very much in command of the crew at that point, so he probably wouldn't have done a retake even if they asked.
They probably thought it wasn't worth it. They were like, nah, just leave it. Let him do what he wants. But on Classic Who then, have you got a particular favourite classic story or classic season or anything like that?
Season 18 is my
favourite. That was straight in there. Season 18. Nice.
Yeah, that is my number one favourite of the classic seasons. And then number 2 would be about between season 13 and 14.
Oh, okay, so both Baker seasons then.
Yeah, they're my top 2. Then it gets a little bit more blurry. But, I love season 18. The emphasis on the whole theme of entropy, I just absolutely adore it, because I love the themes that it has across that season. And one of my favourite stories is a story that not many people appreciate or like. It depends on your point of view, but it's The Leisure Hive. And I just have a lot of love for that story, because from the opening pan on Brighton Beach, it just sets up the new era very, very nicely. It's just great direction, and is a great opening to John Nathan Turner's era as well, because it is certainly one way to get it started. And I know that maybe some people would think it gets a bit ropey mid-Davison, but I quite love the aesthetics and the old attitudes in the JNT era. So season 18, big fan of it.
No, yeah, season 18. I think I found a new appreciation for it when I got the Blu-ray set when that came out, because that was the first time I watched all of the stories from season 18 in order. And I think that's a series that does benefit watching like the stories as they were transmitted. Again, I think to really appreciate those themes of entropy and the more scientific things explored. I really appreciate like the whole thing that, Chris H. Bidmead as a script editor tried to do to get some real science back into the show. I love it when Doctor Who explores concepts like that. But I think it's a cracking season. I mean, Logopolis, great way for Tom to bow out, I think, in my opinion. Really great story, even if he wasn't that enthused himself anymore. But
Yeah, it's a weird one, that one, because even though Tom was clearly having a bad time completely, his performance actually benefited from it.
oh
And
yeah, completely. Because the whole thing is basically the Doctor knowing he's gonna die.
yeah, and it's so weird how the reality of the situation, Tom Baker being basically extremely grumpy, actually fed in very nicely to his Doctor being extremely grumpy.
Yeah, all the producers watching, thinking, "Oh, if only my actors could actually feel the way I want them to." So, but I think though that concept is just like of the Doctor knowing he's gonna die. I think that works so much better in like a standalone story like Legopolis, rather than had they woven it into all of season 18 compared to series 6 of the modern series, Matt Smith's second one, where right from the first episode it's like, oh, the Doctor's gonna die, and then because that series was split as well, you had like 6 months with that looming over. But I mean, we all knew from the start he wasn't really gonna die. So I thought the fact they spread it over a whole season, in my opinion anyway, the fact they spread it over a whole season just sort of like killed any tension right from the off, in my opinion. I don't know what you
Yeah,
thought about that, but
it's been a long time since I rewatched Series 6 as well, because that's probably one of my least favourite of the modern era. And but I will say I agree with you, because the whole when they keep on having these plot threads being like the Doctor's he's going to die, like they did with the specials era for Tennant as well, I just don't find it works particularly well, because you're too drawn out of the fact that this character is not going to die. And if it's the death of a specific incarnation, I can kind of get behind that. But when they have it all over their head as if you're going to die a final death, the final end, then that's the line. That's where the line should be drawn.
yeah. No, that's it. I mean, I think, like I say, with Tennant, they did it a bit better. How it was like, for the specials, we knew he was going to die, but they were never like, it is the, as you say, the final end, like he will die and never come back. It was like, okay, we know this incarnation's dying. But yeah, that whole notion of the Matt Smith Doctor being dead and that's it, I was a bit like, well, you've just sort of killed any. The question now becomes, how does the Doctor die? It goes to, how the hell does he get out of this one? Which I think works in, like, as I say, one episode, but not over a whole series, especially when it's not brought up all the time. But I think that let's just take charge of the show. Let's just write the show ourselves, and everything will, as every Doctor Who fan has said at some point, I'm sure. But
every Doctor Who fan has plans of doing that. They know what they do with the show.
no, of course, yeah, I've got massive respect for the like creative team who do. I mean, as you know, probably from doing acting, to work in television, and especially a drama of that high like standard and budget and everything that goes into it, like I've got nothing but respect for the crew that work behind it. I still think we are allowed to criticize, of course. I think everyone's allowed to criticize, but I think as long as it doesn't get nasty, like personally nasty, because like these people are doing their, they're just doing their jobs in a way. They're doing it how they think they should do it, and I'm like, do you know what, if I don't agree with it, that's cool, but I'm not going to start hurling names at you. But no, which I see a bit too often on social. I've started to actually come away from like viewing Who opinions or any franchise really, just like on Twitter and stuff, because like you read the comments and it's just, you're like, yeah, it's really like even small things like the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I don't know if you're a fan.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Big fan of that.
I don't know if you've seen in November they're releasing a big 4K box set of like all 23 films in the Infinity Saga. It looks quite cool. But there seems to be some, I think in America, the cases are like numbered and they're going to be like steel cases. Whereas apparently in the UK, it's just going to be like cardboard sleeves and they're not numbered, which is a bit, that's not, okay, the steels are better. But it's like, it's a small thing. And then there's these comments saying like, oh, I can't believe they've done this, these effing and jeffing and I'm like, what are you complaining about? Like, you're complaining that a box is made out of cardboard instead of steel. Like, what's wrong with you? Like,
There are
just
bigger things.
yeah.
Yeah, there are so many bigger things to be worried about in the world than what we get versus what the country who made most of the films gets. Um, it's just there's an element of fan entitlement in certain respects. Like I will say, absolutely 100%, no one on Doctor Who is setting out to destroy the show. Nope.
No. Oh, I love that argument. Like, this person is working on the inside to destroy the show. It's like, well, they're being employed by them, so why would they do that? Like,
Why would they sabotage their own livelihood and income?
exactly.
I
It's
mean,
just,
yeah.
yeah, I agree with you. It's just complete. Or like when, like this whole, I've seen it here and there where like, oh, this person's evil, and I'm like, it's evil's a very strong word to start with, and it's not a word I'd use to describe people like Jodie Whittaker or Chris Chibnall. More so, people like Harvey Weinstein or someone of that nature. I'd argue that's a proper use of the term. Yeah, but it's this whole thing, like we said, isn't it, of like social media and people just feeling more powerful because, well, they can't be held accountable for anything that they say or do, really, which is a shame. But to put it on a lighter note, just away from Doctor Who for a second, I know, shock horror, everyone. What other franchise or TV show or film would be like your number two? If like Doctor Who's your number one, like franchise love, is there a close second?
Absolutely. Star Trek.
Ah, Trekkie.
Yeah, big
Nice,
Trekkie.
nice one. I was chatting with, I believe you know, Philip Hawkins.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I was chatting with him on the show the other day, and he's a big Trekkie. And I asked him because I'm not one myself. I've dabbled in some of the shows and whatnot, but I would never consider myself like a diehard Trekkie. I don't know enough, but you know, I asked the question of, is Star Trek in a good place? Because I just, you know, you see the odd things online about the Star Trek Discovery show, how some people aren't happy with it or whatever. And, you know, to someone who's not initiated, I guess, it looked to me as if, oh dear, this show's in a bit of trouble. But then he made the point of, oh no, I mean, there's like 6 shows being made about Star Trek at the minute. And I'm like, that's great. Like, so, oh, nice to meet another Trekkie. Have you got a particular favourite Star Trek series? I think Phillips was Deep Space Nine, if I've remembered correctly.
Oh, I love Deep Space Nine, and I think Deep Space Nine is probably the best of the Star Trek series. But my favorite is the Next Generation, purely because both nostalgia and I love the characters. But I love the Deep Space Nine, and I love Next Gen. I love the original series as well. Those are my 3 favorites. I mean, I do have a great appreciation of what comes after as well. Like Voyager has a lot of good points to it. It's not as strong as the others, but it has a lot of good points. As well as that, Enterprise seen as kind of the weakest series, but again, there are some very interesting episodes of it nearer to the end. Discovery, I enjoy. I've only seen the first series. I just haven't gotten around to seeing the second one, but I did enjoy it. And I watched the first episode of Lower Decks today. I thought that was a bit of a mixed experience because that's the new animated series. It's very Rick and Morty like. Um, it was very, very jarring. But yeah, I'd say the franchise, from my point of view, is kind of in a good place because there's a lot being produced. You've got, they just announced Star Trek Prodigy as well, which is going to be a CG animated kids series featuring some lawless teens finding an abandoned Federation starship. So I think the fact that the franchise is seen as profitable enough to make all sorts of brand new TV shows, so in essentially a whole new 80s 90s era, I think that's can only be seen as a good sign.
No, I think that's right. I mean, you've essentially just backed up what Philip said as well, just saying how it's in a really good place. And I think that's sort of the problem when you see these articles or tweets that with a headline that spell doom and gloom just because like a minority complained about something. It's like this whole thing now with Doctor Who saying, oh, it's going to be cancelled again, it's history repeating itself, it's just like in the late 80s. And it's like, yes, in the sense of the ratings, when you look at them at face value, are they lower? Yes, but in like today's world with digital and catch up and DVD sales and stuff, it's like audience figures, I think, don't really carry that much, or at least as much weight as they used to, in terms of judging a show's success.
Yeah, I mean it's all about the download figures as well on like iPlayer or iTunes or Amazon Prime. It's all about how the show is watched because a lot of people will watch on catch up. If you compare the show to what I would say is probably the prime of the new era, say the late Russell T Davies era, the early Matt Smith era, then of course you're going to look at the ratings from then and note that there's a massive come down. then, and I won't deny some of the audience had definitely left. They left during Capaldi's era, as much as I love it. But at the same time, there is new audiences coming in as well, and they might just be watching in different ways, in different forms. The show is still performing okay. It may not be doing as well as it did 10 years ago, but it's still doing okay. It's still performing, like your reasonable primetime BBC drama.
Mm.
And
And I
it,
think.
and
Oh, sorry. Go on. Go on.
sorry, I was just going to say, and all the merchandise there's still being created for it as well. Just goes to show that the BBC still feel it's profitable, because in the late 80s they'd be winding it down very significantly. But they still have a good deal of faith in the brand, and the fact that it hasn't been cancelled yet shows that they're still interested in it. So that can only be seen as a good thing.
No, exactly. That was the point I was going to hit on. You're right. The whole merchandising thing, like when you just think of the sheer amount of Doctor Who merchandise that is still being produced, like of the Jodie era and stuff. Like, I mean, if the brand was going to be cancelled on TV, like I don't think we'd get like big spin-off things like the whole thing we've got now with Time Lord Victorious coming up across all the. Which I think is a really cool idea. I'm probably not going to be able to get every single release, sadly, but no, but I think it's a cool idea. Like, do you think it's a cool concept, the whole Time Lord Victorious thing?
I definitely think it's a cool concept. Just the price tag attached is almost unassailable for most Doctor Who fans, unless they're hardcore. Because we're talking like six big Finnish stories, and another BBC audio, 3 novels, a whole set of comics. Yeah, it's going to be very, very costly. So you're going to have to really pick a medium and stick to it, unless you have the expendable income, which some people may do. Fortunately, it's going to be spread out, fortunately, but at the same time, it is going to be interesting to see how it all plays out and it keeps a cohesive narrative for those who are not able to get everything.
No, exactly. And I'm sure like once it all wraps up, there'll be like videos on YouTube of people being like, here is the whole Time Lord Victorious story explained or whatever. Sort of like a Star Wars theory video, yeah, like breaking it all down, which will be cool, but it's also cool to experience it firsthand. But I suppose the major Big Finish news is, of course, Chris Eccleston coming back.
Yay!
Yeah, no, we all fans rejoice. I mean, were you shocked? Because I know I was.
I was surprised, but I was extremely happy. I mean, I knew that Eccleston was getting more and warmer towards the fans ever since he started doing Comic Cons. And I think that probably swayed him a bit. Um, just seeing how popular his Doctor still is. And so he just decided to do Big Finish because, there is like he's clearly warmed up enough to the show to in these past 15 years to be able to be like, okay, I can revisit this. And I think that's both fantastic in terms of like we're getting new Ninth Doctor stuff from the Ninth Doctor himself, and we're getting he's getting to be able to revisit the role that he clearly loved.
No, that's it. Yeah, and I mean, I'm glad. Yeah, just glad he's coming back because he's always said he's been quite proud of the role. So I think initially for me, my hopes were dashed when he didn't come back for the 50th because I think in my head, if he's not going to come back for something as big as that, then at that time, well, that's it. But yeah, as you say, he's warm to the fans and thankfully he's doing stuff. But would you want these audio adventures to be the Ninth Doctor with, say, like Rose or Captain Jack, or would you want it to be with like new companions, or like what sort of thing? If it was down to you, what sort of adventures would you want to see with the Ninth Doctor on audio?
Well, there are going to be, I believe, 4 box sets, so I would quite like to see maybe the first 2 would be like pre Rose adventures, maybe before he meets Rose, and we can see the Ninth Doctor literally just after that regeneration from John Hurt into him, and we can see his first moments. And then just cover the adventures that he had after that, maybe with some of that grief, how he taps into that grief, and just really feel the rawness of this character. And then maybe for the latter 2, if they can get Billy involved, then some extra stories with her and Chris would be absolutely excellent, and maybe even one with John if they can do that.
Yeah, well, I think John seems to love any big opportunity to cause a stir, so I'd like to think he'd come back in a heartbeat. But no, definitely, I think that's a good way to go about it. Sort of like the half and half approach, as you say, of like pre-Rose stuff and then post-Rose stuff. Because I think, like you say, that grief is what makes Eccleston one of, if not the most interesting of like the new Doctors since it came back.
Yeah, he's just definitely one of the most compelling.
Like because he acts in such. I think he's a brilliant actor. Like a lot of his work I've seen and loved. I mean, we won't talk about Thor: The Dark World, but that's beside the point. Or G.I. Joe: Rise of Cobra. That was just an awful movie. Anyway, but yeah, there's little things he does. Like I love actors who they feel like when it comes to like heavy stuff or like really emotional or difficult stuff, they feel like they don't have to really overplay it in a way, whether that's in their movements, their dialogue. Like Eccleston does so much with just his face alone, where instantly what he's feeling, what he's thinking. I mean, the whole bit, in I think it's in The End of the World when Jabe, just says, "Oh, I know where you're from," and it's not possible, and you just see like a tear go down his face. Like obviously at the time when it first aired, those of us who were new like me, that was like my second ever Doctor Who. That was a bit like, what's she talking about? But in hindsight, it's like, whoa, like it's just good acting. I found the same with Capaldi as well. The things Capaldi could do in just a look or like one word, I was like, man, like you're a good actor. Just
They are both phenomenal actors, and I'm so happy they just took the role. Even if Eccleston was only in one visual series, he still performed a whole half a decade's worth in one series. So both of them just performed incredibly well, and that's why Capaldi's like my favorite of the new Doctors, but Eccleston is very, very high up there on my list.
Oh no, yeah, Capaldi's my favorite of the news as well. He's actually my favorite Doctor of all time. I think it was William Hartnell for a long time. It was William Hartnell. With him, it was more like, obviously because he's the first, he is just so different when you compare it to everyone else. And I don't know, I sort of liked that he was so uniquely different. But yeah, just after Series 8 with Capaldi, that was it for me. I was like, you've pipped it. It was my favorite scene, probably. Debatably my favourite scene in Doctor Who ever is in Dark Water, the penultimate for Series 8. It's the scene where, and people might laugh because it's the dreamy sequence when they're on like the volcano. Yeah, I'll never forget watching that on transmission when we don't know it's a hallucination at first. And just the way he plays that scene, you've got this young woman like begging you to go and save her loved one, and I don't know, just the way he plays it, how stern he is, how forthright he is. I just found that so powerful, because I think if you pitted that to like a David Tennant or a Matt Smith, they would have been like, oh yeah, of course, let's go and do it, let's go save him. Whereas Capaldi took the complete opposite approach, and I just found it so interesting and gripping. And yes, I know it's a hallucination, and we can all laugh about it, and it didn't really happen.
Well, that's the thing. I love that about it. Because it's so McCoy in that manipulation aspect that he's clearly just seeing how far Clara will go with this. And he's been like, okay, we'll play this out. I'll play it like it's happening. And he just literally is only at the end that he's like, okay, calm down. It's all right. Don't worry. And it's just great.
Yeah, you're right. I guess Capaldi in a lot of ways, particularly in that first season, was very McCoy-esque. I mean, the whole, the kill the moon thing, where he's just like, right, I'm going now. It's up to you. I think that's a very McCoy-esque thing to do. But I think Series 8 is probably my favourite of the modern ones, just because, again, like the tone of it is so different. And so I think it's just what we needed after Season 7, which, I mean, I love Matt Smith, but I think towards the end, in my opinion, it got a bit too like whimsical and fairy tale, which I'm all for like a splash of, but I just thought it got a bit too like that. So then to go to Series 8 where it's very dark and very like more strict, and you've got a Doctor who again isn't necessarily likable in some cases, but for me I just found that so compelling and I never knew what he was going to do or say next. And like I know they toned it down in Series 9 and 10, and I still love those because Capaldi's just you could write anything for him and he'd knock it out the park. But I really wish it'd been interesting to see if he was still more, in that Series 8 vein for his whole tenure. Obviously, like, mellow a bit. I don't want him to be, like, stern all the time. but I just wish he'd sort of kept that more like sterner edge all the way through. I just think that could have been a really interesting journey. I mean, I get why they toned it down, because I guess a lot of people found it a bit too abrasive, but yeah, I think they missed a trick there.
Yeah, unfortunately, as you said, the audience just didn't respond well to it. Even though I personally quite liked it as well. It's the same with what happened with Colin Baker as well, because they did him abrasive and brash at the start, and again, certain audiences got turned off by it, and it's unfortunate that the Doctor's character arc is limited by the audience reception. Um, but I really liked Capaldi in Series 8. I think he's excellent in Series 10 as well. But Series 8 he has a very unique portrayal of the Doctor in regards to, well, the entire new series, because he's even spikier than Eccleston.
And I think that's what I liked, because as you say, Eccleston could be spiky. He has those moments when you rewatch Series 1 where you're like, oh, that's a bit on the edge or a bit on the nose, but yeah, Capaldi in that first season especially just takes it to a whole another level. The scene that springs to mind is, in Deep Breath, when he confronts the homeless man, and he's being a bit deluded at first, but then when he just suddenly flips and gets a bit more sterner, like that whole "give me a coat," and the guy's like, "Oh, I'm cold," and he's like, "Yeah, so am I. Give me a coat." It's like, oh, that's really different for the Doctor, but. It was in a way I was like, I like this in like the intrigue sort of sense. Like, I want more of this. The whole ambiguity with the half-faced man. Did he fall? Did he get pushed? And how it never quite tells you. It's literally left up to... I love things like that. Because, I mean, I've looked at it either way. Like, I watch Deep Breath. Every time I watch it, I think differently either side. It's like, oh, well, the Doctor pushed him because of X, Y, and Z. Or, oh, no, the half-faced man just did it because of X, Y, Z. I love... the conundrum. Some of Moffat's best work, in my opinion. Really, some of his best work, yeah. Yeah, definitely. Well, I am aware we're running up to an hour, which is usually the standard for this show. So before we clock off, just a few things. First of all, I want to ask you, Dom, what is your favourite, Doctor Who memory? Whether that be a moment when you watched the show or just a moment like at a convention. Just what's your favourite moment related to Doctor Who, basically, for you?
Oh, good question. Probably meeting Peter Capaldi.
You've met him?
Yeah, I met him at. I met him 3 times. One.
Oh, mate, you're making me so jealous.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's
Yeah,
alright,
he's such a lovely man. I met him at the Doctor Who Festival in 2015, and then I met him outside the BFI, and the last time I met him was at LFCC a couple of years ago. I'll have to send you a really cool picture, because there was a whole crowd of us. This is probably my favourite memory. There was a whole crowd of us, Doctor Who fans, just milling about. We'd just done a cosplay photo shoot, just about to walk away, and then suddenly Peters comes out and stops us, and he just he loved how we dressed, and he wanted to take a picture of us. And it was just, the photo is just amazing.
That's an honour bestowed by the gods, that is, if Peter Capaldi want to take a picture with you like that. That's amazing. Yeah, definitely send me that. I'd love to see it. But with Peter, I've never met him yet, touch wood. There's still time. But the university I went to was a place called LIPA in Liverpool, a drama school, and one of the things they did every few months, they'd try and get someone from the industry in to do a Q&A sort of thing. And the year after I graduated, who do they get?
Oh,
Peter
no.
Capaldi. And I still had my ties and stuff. I'd helped them with some of the auditions, and I was begging. I was like, please let me sit in. And they were like, it's really for the students. And I was like, yeah, I get it, but I'm a really big fan. So sadly missed out on that. But there'll be conventions when this pandemic's all over. So my fingers are crossed. But no, it's a really great memory, man. Thank you for sharing that with us. And before we go, do you want to, where can people find you? Do you want to shout out your YouTube and socials and stuff?
Yes, so on YouTube, I am Who Chaser. And on Instagram, I am Dominus of Time, which I
like that. That's cool.
It's a play on Time Lord. And on Twitter, I am at DominicJGM. So yeah, That's where you can find me.
Brilliant, thank you. Yeah, definitely check out Dom's videos, guys. Like the cosplay and stuff's really I find them really interesting. Like how you compose them and get it all together. I think it's really great. And definitely check out DW 2012's fan film series, where you can catch Dom as the Purple Doctor.
Yes, first episode is out now, and we'll hopefully be releasing more episodes of Series 5 later this year.
Incredible, when the world actually sorts itself out, hopefully.
Basically, yes.
Yes, which will be soon. But no, check out all of Don's stuff. And just finally, thank you so much for being on the show, mate. It's been great having you. I've loved waxing lyrical about Doctor Who with you. It's been a real pleasure, and I hope to work with you again sometime in the future.
No problem. Likewise. Thank you for having me.
No problem. Well, thank you again. And until the next one, guys, we shall see you in the next installment. This program has been brought to you in part by our producer and director patrons. With your support, you help keep AMTV running and the programs coming to your screens. Thank you. And that does bring us to the end of another evening here on AMTV. We hope you enjoyed the program, and we hope to see you next time. Good night.